Dr. Jose Antonio, I'm so glad to have you back. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. I know it's been a few years since I've
Yeah.
been in your show, but I'm looking forward to some fun conversation.
Well, here's the thing, and I don't want to just limit this to creatine, but just so the audience knows, I mean, Dr. Jose Antonio, when you hear Dr. Rhonda Patrick and all these people, Lane Norton, all these people, Andrew Huberman talk about, well, creatine is one of the most researched supplements that we know of. We know it's got more research behind it than almost
Mhm.
any that there is out there. You are one of the pioneers of creatine research, which I think that it's amazing because when you and I last spoke, that's what I wanted to talk to you about. Is it was finally to the point where creatine was becoming one of those supplements that all of a sudden everyone was saying you got to have your 5 grams of creatine per day. Now that's even going up. Now you hear more benefits beyond just muscle repair and energy growth, and now it's more along the lines of cognitive health and all these things. So it's been I thought that it had kind of reached its peak of like people understanding the benefits of creatine when you and I first spoke, and that's why I wanted to get you on, is to better educate me. But now, man, Dr. Antonio, it's only gotten more and more. So I want to talk about that. And then I just want to pick your big brain about just supplementation as a whole. So I'm here for it if you are.
You know, creatine's an interesting story. It's funny. I teach a sports nutrition course at my university. It's Nowhere Southeastern University in South Florida, and but one of the things I do is I tell my students, and I will often use historical landmarks rather than saying, 40 years ago or 50 years ago. I'll often say this. I've been taking creatine since Bill Clinton was president, and they'll look at me like, okay, when was that? They have no idea.
Right.
They're, they're like Bill Clinton. I mean, if you ask them to name like the last five presidents, they'll go like Trump, Biden, Obama, and then they go blank.
Yep.
It's kind of funny. So then I tell, okay, 1990s, blah, blah, blah. I've been taking it for a long time. If it was harmful, certainly something would have happened to me. But what I find fascinating today is, and you mentioned two of them, Rhonda Patrick and Andrew Huberman, individuals that literally had no training in exercise science or sports nutrition, published nothing in exercise science and sports nutrition, but that's all they seem to talk about is exercise science and sports nutrition, which is a good thing because, I always say, if this is what you're really interested in, why did you study what you studied for your PhD? And I've always found that really odd. I mean, I knew way back when my interest was in human performance, ergogenic aids, sports nutrition, things like that. I tell students, I ask very simple questions. I want to know, does A work better than B? That's it. Because oftentimes we have these sort of binary choices. Should I take caffeine or no caffeine? Should I take carbs before I race or no carbs? Or should I take, 60 grams of carbs per hour versus 30 grams? So I like to frame it in simple terms because athletes, and I don't mean just, people who make money, competing. I'm talking about anyone who competes in anything. They don't have an infinite number of choices. They have to decide, what can I do to improve my 5K run time from 24 minutes to 23 minutes and 30 seconds? And to most people, 30 seconds, that's nothing. No, 30 seconds to someone who trains is a lot. So I try to come at it from that perspective. Now, what's interesting about creatine, it's basically mainstream now.
Mhm.
And one of my good friends, Darren Candow, he probably does more creatine research than anybody. He's up in Canada. He's the one. I had a conversation with him a ways ago. He's taking 20 grams a day now. I think it's 10 to 20 grams a day. And I told him, and he says because of brain
Mhm.
cognition, because you may need a higher dose to get enough into your brain for it to matter. And I always, frame the question this way. Okay, I do not want to take 10 to 20 grams because I am so used to taking my 3 to 5 grams every day since Bill Clinton was president, right? And to me, I'm like, okay, I've been doing this for 30, 40 years, roughly. Shouldn't that be a long enough time to get it into the brain? Now, obviously, no one knows the answer because no one's going to do a 30-year randomized controlled trial. Okay. And I think when we're getting sort of into the nuances of science, and I think this is where I get frustrated with other scientists because they will say something to the effect of, Well, there's not really any hardcore data showing that creatine improves cognition. There's some studies that suggest it, but we just don't have enough data. And my response to that is always, but what's the downside? Is there a downside to taking a lot of creatine? No. Could it possibly help your brain? Yes. Are you going to wait for 30 more studies before you take it? I mean, what fool looks at the world that way? Well, I'm going to, before I do this, I'm going to wait for 50 randomized controlled trials. And one of the examples I use, I mean, this sort of is going into drugs. I ask people, if you're what I call the science purist, you need all of these RCTs or randomized controlled trials. The question I always ask them is sort of time travel back to 1960s and 1970s. And I don't know if you followed bodybuilding back, the old timers in the 1970s, Franco Columbo, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Lou Ferrigno, those guys, Dave Draper.
Heck yeah.
Someone asked you, if you took the anabolic steroids, would it help increase muscle hypertrophy? Are you going to say, well, I think I need 50 more RCTs before I'd say yes? Sometimes you have to rely on what you see with your eyeballs. Sometimes you have to rely on what people have been doing for years. I mean, there's another analogy is the one where, high intensity interval training versus long, slow distance or zone 2 training. It's such a bizarre argument that if you look at people who compete in running, they do both. But people try to frame it as high intensity interval training is much better than low intensity or long, slow distance training based on these 6-week or 8-week studies. Again, if you're going to rely just on randomized controlled trials, you're going to it's sort of a tunnel vision. And that's where I separate. I'm not a science purist. I'm what I call a science pragmatist. It's like, okay, I like the RCTs. I love randomized controlled trials, but also I will look at what people are doing because if something is working for someone consistently, there's something going on there. And I think that goes back to, I don't know if you follow cycling, but cyclists have been using Coca-Cola during a race. Most people, if you talk to them about use of Coca-Cola, they're like, that's junk. Who the hell needs Coca-Cola? Well, guess what? It's got fluid, it's got sugar, it's got caffeine. That's going to help you in a race. And so when you start sort of expanding how you view things, you don't get sort of stuck in the RCT. We need randomized controlled trials. I'm like, I love RCTs. But there's a point where, if you're making decisions for an athlete, you can't just step back and say, well, once they do 20 more randomized controlled trials, then I'll recommend you take creatine for your brain. And it's like, well, why don't I just start now and see if anything happens? So, that's my one critique of a lot of scientists. They're purists and they absolutely need all of these randomized controlled trials. We're not going to live long enough to see enough randomized controlled trials for everything we do.
I think that's exactly right. And one of the things about creatine is it's almost one of those supplements that there is no panacea. But as far as, I mean, I'm telling you, man, it's cheap, it's bioavailable. It's very simplistic in the science. It's like one of these is kind of like the Goldilocks of all the different supplements that I know that I take. And it's weird that because you and I talked about this last time. For so long, it was just, and you talking about the old bodybuilding days. Brother, I used to subscribe to Flex back in the day. I
used to write for Flex.
It's okay. Well, I probably read some of your stuff, and I had Frank Columbo and Arnold and all those guys, their posters on my little workout wall. And I mean, no, I was real into it. And Joe Weider, all those guys. But the thing is, I think that creatine came through the bro science, thing. And then somewhere along the way, people like you and others started researching it and giving it kind of that elevated look. And there's just been no downside. That's one of the things to me that means the most. And that's why I told my parents, who were both in their 70s, and my mom suffered a stroke. My dad's not in the best of health. And they're constantly asking me, what should I take? Was this good? Is that good? And I'm like, it's, to me, 5 grams of creatine every single day in my coffee without question, for the reasons you said. I maintain, I'm 51 years old. I maintain body fat percentage of between 10 and 12%. Is it because of the creatine? No. But I guarantee you, whenever as I get older, to want to go into the weight room and do the things that I do and not be sore, be tired, have that extra energy, then I'm going to do what it takes. And also now to fight off dementia and other things as I get older. If creatine helps, then I'm here for it. Now I want to know from you, from the scientific standpoint, what happens between 5 grams and 20 grams to start to get that cognitive boost to now I'm hearing that it helps you again, going back to Rhonda Patrick. So I was listening to her one time, just a little blurb. I didn't listen to the whole podcast that she was on, but she was talking about how if you if you up your dosage of creatine, it can help you overcome bad sleep. You know, what's happening mechanistically in our bodies that is making these benefits, at least there seemed to be a correlation where these researchers are saying there's a correlation between these increased dosages of creatine and better cognitive performance, better sleep, some of these things. What's happening there, Doc?
Well, I think, well, you alluded to the lower dose to the higher dose of 20 grams. And apparently it's just much more difficult to get creatine into your brain versus skeletal muscle. Now we're all familiar with the 3 to 5 gram dose for skeletal muscle, and that actually seems to be fine. If all you cared about was getting increases in creatine and phosphocreatine into skeletal muscle, hey, 3 to 5 grams. And that's what I've been doing for forever, since Bill Clinton, I did not have sex, but
I
no,
took creatine, but I did not have sexual relations with that woman. Yeah.
right. So it's tough to get, in some of these studies, it's tough to get enough brain creatine levels elevated unless you do a super high dose. Now, mechanistically, if you look at the studies that show creatine helping cognition, it is true that it is typically under stressful conditions. Probably some of the best data is sleep deprived or sleep restricted data, where you don't sleep enough or you're deprived enough of it that it negatively impacts, cognitive processes. So for instance, I always tell students, you could sort of do these experiments yourself. You can be on creatine, be off it, but if, let's say, you have a bad night's sleep, if you're on creatine chronically, does that seem to help? If you're not on it, does that seem to hurt? So some of these things you could try on your own, but the sleep deprivation data and creatine helping, I always say this, it's not going to bring you up to normal, but it keeps you from getting worse. Like you wake up, you had a crappy night's sleep, you feel like shit. At least if you take creatine, you'll feel less like shit. So it's not like it's going to bring you up to normal. The other condition, and it really is not a condition, but if you're not a meat eater, if you're vegan, you're getting no creatine in your diet. So it's interesting. Those are the individuals that actually respond the best cognitively. When you look at some of the data looking at when they do tasks of memory, vegans and vegetarians respond really well to creatine. So to me, it's an energy substrate. Your brain needs it, but it's just difficult to get. Now, if you're starting at zero, like a vegan, taking any amount of creatine is going to help. But if you're a heavy meat eater like you or I, it's like, and I eat a lot of fish, so that has a lot of creatine. I've been told you really should up your creatine intake to get to the brain because, sure, you eat a lot of fish, you take your 3 to 5 grams a day, maybe you need 10 more grams. And again, that's not a behavior I'm willing to do because I know I won't stick to it because I'm so used to my routine of taking, and I take capsules. I don't use powder. So I take capsules that are roughly 3 to 5 grams a day. But it serves as energy substrate for your brain. So to me, that's kind of the simplest explanation. But the data does show that it's primarily under stressful conditions that it'll help cognition, which, let's face it, a lot of what we do is under stressful conditions. And, I tell students, hey, final exam week, I'm sure you're stressed, probably undersleep, you're not getting enough sleep. If you were on creatine the entire semester, like I told you, you'd probably be better off.
Very cool. Okay. So let's talk a little bit further back. Like one of the things I want to do is kind of I want to get some of these myths about creatine out of the way. Now, one of the things, because creatine has become a household, name or where people, it's very mainstream now, to your point. So now you've got the marketers starting to try to say that their creatine is the best creatine, the purest creatine. Okay, this is Jason Wright's layman's take is that that's bunk, that as long as it's a quality source, creatine is creatine is creatine. You can't have a supercharged creatine. So am I right or wrong?
Jason, you're correct. And 99.999% of the research is on creatine monohydrate. I know there's other forms, creatine citrate, creatine HCl, creatine pyruvate, you name it. None have shown to be better. In fact, some of the claims are weird, like this is absorbed better than creatine monohydrate. What are you talking about? Creatine monohydrate's absorbed like 99 point something percent. What do you want to go from 99.5 to 99.6? I mean, that's not going to matter. So it is absolutely true that creatine monohydrate is the one that is studied the most. And it's like, can you improve on it? I guess maybe if you could make it stable in liquid for a long time, which they can't, that would be one way, quote, I guess, to improve it. But really, it's just another delivery system. I mean, some people prefer liquid. I prefer capsule. It's not an improvement per se. It's just a different way of consuming it. But you're absolutely correct in your assessment.
Okay. So another one is I don't want to take creatine because it will cause me to hold water and be puffy. What would you say?
Well, here's the thing with that. If people tell me that whatever puffy means to them, I say, well, just stop taking it. If you look at the data, like we've done enough creatine studies and we've measured total body water using a BIA device, it's kind of variable. I mean, if you look at sort of individual data points and let's say baseline is here, there are some people whose total body water goes up, some don't change, some seem to drop. But you do bring water into skeletal muscle cells when you take creatine, and actually that acts as an anabolic signal by bringing in water to your cells. So to me, puffy, I mean, I hear puffy, I hear bloated. Those aren't scientific terms to me. I'm like, what is that? I don't know what that means. But if you don't like this puffy or bloat or whatever you call it, just stop taking it. I mean, I tell people I have no bone, I have no dog in this fight. It's like if you don't like the way you feel on it, just don't take it. I mean, it's not a big deal. Um, or just try a lower dose. And then I tell people, what if you just ate a lot of fish, like a lot of fish, which has a lot of creatine? Would you get puffy on that? And so you'd think you would if it's creatine, or maybe it's something else. So, I just tell people keep an open mind, but if you don't like the stuff, just stop taking it.
Never thought about that. Yeah, if you just go find another source for it and, and just kind of do the comparison, and you're probably not gonna get puffy from eating a lot of lean fish. All
Yeah.
right. So then there's also, I guess it's I don't know whether it's the liver or the kidneys that people are usually trying to find something wrong with creatine, but that seems to come up that there could be liver damage or something like that. What do you tell folks?
It reminded me of this Instagram post by a physician. Uh, and she said, creatine is killing you. So I was like, whoa, we went from hurting the liver and kidneys, so now it's killing you. And so people are now chiming in and they're like, no, here's the data. And she obviously doesn't care about the data. She's like, no, I've seen my patients and this stuff is killing you. And I'm like, well, I mean, killing is pretty bad. You have clinical data, please publish it. She's like, I'm not going to publish any of this data. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I don't know what to say. But getting back to liver and kidneys, there's no evidence at all. There's plenty of randomized controlled trials. And this is where RCTs are important. Comparing creatine to a placebo, looking at liver function, kidney function, even blood lipids. Like, no, there's no harmful effect. I mean, it's a weird supplement in that I remember this was the conversation I had probably 10 years ago with some of my science friends, and they're like, "Don't you find it strange that creatine does all these really good things, and there's not a single harmful effect? Like nothing. Even think about other than creatine, what has the most data? Caffeine. Caffeine and creatine play neck and neck. Caffeine definitely has harmful side effects. You could kill yourself overdosing on caffeine, but we can't think of a harmful side effect or creatine. There's no downside to it. Some people say, well, weight gain. I'm like, that's actually why some people take it. They want to gain weight. So the liver stuff, baloney, the kidney stuff, baloney. There are no harmful side effects that we can see that we've seen in any of these trials. So, but people love to say that, hey, they say that about protein. No, protein, bad for the kidneys, bad for it's bad for this. It's like, where do these people come up with this stuff?
Yeah, I agree. Now let's talk a little bit about, and I want you to throw in some other things. I want to take kind of like an avatar. I told you I'm 51, but I'm in shape. I've been, training and trying to keep myself in shape for years and years. But let's say that somebody's listening to this and they don't know anything really about supplementation, and they are that listener out there. And listener, you know who you are. And if I get the right guest on, no matter what they say, you'll run out and you'll buy it because it was on the Healthy CEO, and Jason, he takes it, and Dr. Jose Antonio, he takes it and he's researched. So here I go. I'm going to go load up on it. And so now, and then you end up with a pantry full of stuff you have no idea why you bought. So, and I always say, and I mentioned on this podcast, that there's two supplements I take every single day in addition to the foundational stack that you and I talked about beforehand that my company makes, and that is glutathione and creatine. Those are really the only two that I'm going to have in addition. But you, as someone who has been involved in sports science and researched this stuff for decades, what are the things that you would tell someone listening to this podcast? And the reason being is because it's just so friggin' hard to get it from their nutrition, from either their food sources or whatever, that you believe are some of those supplements that are just kind of those mainstays. They've got the research, they show to be, the risk factor is so low, the upside is great, and they're going into older age. What are some of the molecules that you would recommend?
Okay, let's take the example of someone who's recreationally active. They go to the gym, maybe they run, maybe they lift. Let's say they're over 40 years of age. And I remember when I was in college, once you hit 40, everyone's old. So I'm gonna stick to that. We're all the same. Once 40 to whenever 80, we're all the same age. So
I get
it's like the older I get, I'm like, yeah, you're old, you're 41. Okay. Um, to me, I always start out with this. The foundation is exercise. If you're not exercising, all the supplement stuff isn't going to help you. Because I get asked a lot about, hey, what supplements I take? And the first thing I ask is, well, what's your training like? Like, oh, I don't work out. I'm like, well, start working out and then we'll worry about it.
Yep.
So you start training and maybe you have a specific goal. And I tend to view supplementation through the lens of performance. Now, people often say, well, what about viewing it through the lens of health? And to me, they're really intertwined. If you're training to lift heavier weights or training to run a little faster or cycle a little faster or swim a little faster, to me, you're improving your health. But the goal is much more tangible, meaning I want to swim faster, easy to measure. I want to lift more weights, easy to measure. So I look at it through the lens of performance. I mean, that's always been my interest, ultimately, is human performance. So the supplements I would recommend, and some people don't consider this a supplement, would be post-workout protein. And I'm sure someone listening to this podcast would say, well, there's not really some anabolic window post-workout. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. But the reason I recommend post-workout protein is because it's a convenient time to get protein. You work out, you're kind of thirsty, maybe a little hungry, get a shake, get your 40 grams of protein. It's easy. So it's a convenient time to get protein so that it contributes to your total protein intake. So post-workout protein. The next one, obviously, is creatine. And to me, I would never recommend initially 20 grams a day for your brain because most people are like, what, 20 grams a day? I can't do that. So I would say, hey, try it anywhere from 3 to 5 grams every day. Decide if you want powders, if you want capsules, maybe gummies. There's a few good gummies out there. But you got to decide which delivery system is something that you'll stick with, something that's repeatable, something that you're compliant with. So creatine. Multivitamin for those who, I don't eat perfectly. I mean, I eat well most of the time, but it doesn't hurt to take a multivitamin. And I don't even take one every day. I might take it every other day or a couple days, 3 days a week, just to fill any possible gaps that you might have in terms of some of the micronutrients. Now, once you get away from creatine and a multivitamin and protein, for me, I start to look at it from a performance standpoint. So depending on your goals, those are the supplements I tend to recommend for performance. Now, is there anything else I would recommend for health? I think the first thing that comes to mind would be fish fat, omega-3 fatty acids. Some data suggests them good for the brain, good for the heart, things like that. Now, you mentioned glutathione, which is interesting because It's not anything that I'm ever asked, and it's not really anything that I suggest, but it's a good thing to take. I mean, it really is. Now, would I recommend any other antioxidants? Typically, I would prefer you get antioxidants through food.
Mhm.
Um, and ironically, the ones that provide the most in the American diet is coffee, which is an amazing beverage. Plenty of data to show consuming coffee decreases the risk of various cancers. It's one of the healthiest beverages, and I'm always, it's always been struck as odd to me when people say, "I'm going to go off coffee for the next 30 to 60 days." I'm like, why? Why? What are you accomplishing? A lot of it is to show, hey, I have willpower. I don't need caffeine. Well, coffee is more than caffeine. Coffee has a lot of things that are good for you. So I would even suggest coffee as a healthy beverage. Any other supplements? Again, I focus on performance, sodium bicarbonate, beta alanine, nitrates. Um, any of the buffers I think are great, especially if you're competing in a sport where you produce a lot of lactate and hydrogen ions. Sodium bicarbonate and beta alanine are two of the great ones. Nitrates are great, increasing oxygen delivery and things like that. And one of the ones that people don't realize is a great ergogenic aid is sugar. Taking sugar or carbohydrate pre and or during training, pre and or during a race is going to help performance. And that's where, things like Coca-Cola come in. Um, so sort of, let's go back. General health, protein, creatine, multivitamin, omega-3 fats. And then when we're dealing with performance, it's specific to the sport or specific to the activity.
So I'm so glad you brought that up because when you're talking about specific to the performance, that's another thing too, going back to creatine, that a lot of people, I think that there has been research, and this is your wheelhouse. Protein, I can actually consume protein and or essential amino acids and still add some lean body mass in, even if I don't do a lot of resistance training or whatever. Creatine is specifically performance. It's not going to do, if I just lay around, yeah, take my creatine, but I just lay around. I don't do any resistance training or cardiovascular training, whatever. It's not going to have the impact. It's going to basically, and this might be a good segue into helping the audience understand what's going on with creatine. It's going to help me perform better, and then yield the results that I want: better lean body mass, better recovery, that sort of thing. And do I have that right?
The lean body mass gains for creatine are actually quite modest. I mean, you're not going to tell it's not like taking anabolic steroids. I
Right.
mean, you can get a couple kilo increase, but you're right. It does help you train harder. And that's where in the long run, it could help you gain skeletal muscle mass or lean body mass. But another reason to take it, there's data to show it helps you recover. It might diminish delayed onset muscle soreness. And, from a performance standpoint or any standpoint, actually, there's not really a value to being sore. Although a lot of guys, particularly if they're training for hypertrophy, they like the feeling of being sore, but it really doesn't. You don't need to be sore. You don't need to feel soreness. So creatine can help diminish that, as can protein. Now it's funny you bring up essential amino acids. Gram for gram, essential amino acids are more anabolic than whole protein. So if you wanted 20 grams of whey protein, you could do 10 grams of essential amino acids. The challenge with EAAs or essential amino acids is the flavoring, and clearly whole protein tastes better than essential amino acids. Now, there are some people who don't care about flavor. I mean, they're like, "Ah, whatever. If it works, I'm taking it, and I don't need as high a dose. It's not as thick. Like, drinking a whey protein shake is thick. Um, Essential amino acids aren't. You mix it with water, it's kind of a watery drink, to be honest. So, but in a way, essential amino acids are sort of the forgotten stepchild of supplements because it actually works quite well. It's just a flavoring issue. And with the way food science is going now, everything tastes good. This isn't the 1970s when if it tasted bad, that meant it worked. Now it's like, it better taste good because I am not going to take it if it tastes bad. So,
No, that's exactly right. It's one of the challenges we have because I told you we put it in our foundational stack. It's kind of that third bolt on is the essential amino acids. And yeah, you're either going to, the powder one that I take is like a berry flavor from Keon, which is Ben Greenfield's company. And it's kind of like I don't know, man. It's terrible. It's the best tasting. It's kind of like kind of like being the I don't know, the tallest short person at the circus. It's like not it's just not that great. But and then if you're going to take it in a capsule form, you've got like Body Health who sells a crap ton of essential amino acids, but
Mhm.
those are chalky and you're going to and you have to take so many of them. I think that's what turns people off, and it's one of the things, ours are vegan capsules, but you've got to take 6 at a time, and really to get the benefit, you want to take them 3 times a day. I will say this, let's land on this a little bit because a lot of people think this is a claim that's too good to be true. If you're fasting, one of the things I use essential amino acids for, if I'm doing an intermittent fast or something like that, and I want to have that hit of protein synthesis right when I wake up in the morning, I can take some essential amino acids as just one dose of them. So again, trying to get that equivalent of the 20 grams I could get from a protein shake or whatever, but I don't have the metabolic effect, so I don't have to worry about breaking my fast. Am I right about that, or is that just wishful
Well,
thinking? What's happening?
the essential amino, you're still going to get some conversion to glucose. So I guess when you say you do some sort of fast, to me, regardless of what's going on, with blood glucose regulation, to me, you're just not eating or
Right.
not eating as much. So it doesn't really, to me, taking the EAAs makes sense from a skeletal muscle preservation point of view.
Yeah.
Because you certainly, if you're undergoing, it's not like some people will do a 2-day fast or whatnot. You don't want to lose any skeletal muscle, mainly because it's just hard to get.
Yep.
So the essential amino acids and creatine are great for preservation of lean mass. To me, that's the reason to take it.
Now, that brings up another topic I wanted to talk to you about is GLP-1s. Obviously, since all the talk, I'd like to just get kind of your general thoughts on GLPs. And then also, the reason why I'm thinking about it right now is because I'm like you. People will come to me and they'll ask about supplements. I'm just like you. I usually I ask about what are you doing for training, but then I'll also say, when's the last time you had blood work done? I mean, it's not a one size fits all. So I could tell you all kinds of things to take, but that's why I like you always bring it back to performance. Well, what are you wanting out of the
Mhm.
supplement? What are you trying to do? Well, one of the things that obviously has been popular, and my wife, a lot we own a retail business here in Tyler, so a lot of the moms come in that are either on GLP-1s or thinking about it, and you can tell when they are because a lot of them they get emaciated, they age really fast, and so they'll ask me questions because they know that I do this stuff, and I'll say, well, you really need to make sure that you're getting the nutrients you need because what you've done is you've just completely crushed your appetite. And so, yeah, you're losing weight, but you're also losing lean body mass. And by the way, I'm not going to ask, I know no man's supposed to ask a woman her age, but I'm pretty sure you're around 45 or 50. So adding lean body mass is even more challenging for you. So do you think that if somebody is doing GLP-1s and so they're losing weight, that they should be also looking at some supplementation, like in particular essential amino acids, getting the protein when they're going to eat? Like, what are some things that people could do to offset that massive loss of the good weight that they need to maintain?
Yeah. I've looked at some of the GLP-1 data, and it differs between drugs. And I can't recall the exact names of these drugs because now there's so many of these peptides. Um, the amount of it seems like the amount of lean body mass loss is equivalent to people who just aren't eating. Like if you go on a calorie restricted diet, you're gonna lose weight, you're eating less. GLP-1s basically you're losing weight because you're eating less. So the amount of lean body mass loss is similar, but you're still losing lean body mass. I have this conversation frequently with a friend of mine he trains fighters. And the idea is, hey, you go on these drugs, you change your lifestyle, make sure you're training so that you maintain your lean body mass, you lose some weight, you become a little healthier. Do you want to stay on the drugs forever? Most people would probably say no. But he always says, well, the reason they're on these drugs is because they won't change their lifestyle. Because if they could change their lifestyle, they wouldn't be on these drugs. It's sort of this weird, chicken egg thing. And in a way, he's right. It's and this sort of harkens back to the body positivity movement, the fat acceptance movement. Um, I've never seen these movements disappear so fast in my life.
Yep.
On Instagram, I recall it because I'll follow people. I'll just read what they write. And body positivity was I guess it was very popular probably over the last decade, maybe. I mean, I'm so old now, I can't remember how long this stuff's been going on. And I always found it odd that it was only women talking to other women.
Mm,
Guys never said, "Hey, buddy, you're fat, but, be positive about it." I mean, guys will tell other guys, "You know what? You're getting a little fat. Maybe you should stop drinking beer."
right.
We're
Yeah.
honest about it. But the body positivity movement, it disappeared once these GLP-1 drugs came. It's like, whoa, what happened to all these body positivity people? So I think these drugs are just another tool that people have a difficulty, whether it's controlling their appetite, losing weight, whatever, to help them lose weight, because there is a cardiovascular benefit to just losing weight. Because if you're just heavy, y- heavy people don't live long. I mean, that's just a fact. Even heavy muscular people don't live long. So you
Right.
can't carry a lot of mass. So that's a plus. Um, I think what's interesting is what happens if you're on it your entire life. Now, people will say, well, it's meant originally for type 2 diabetics, and a lot of them have been taking it chronically, and there doesn't seem to be any long term harm, at least at this point. And I haven't seen any either, but it harkens back to the lifestyle modifications you need to make if you're on the drug. I have relatives who are on the drug, and it's interesting watching in real life, relatives who are on it, who are they obese or just very overweight? Like they're somewhere between overweight and obese. I mean, if you look at them, you're like, okay, you need to lose weight. And in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, you are not the kind of person who wants to exercise. That's just me having an internal conversation. If you stay on the drugs, you should lose weight. Now, I have noticed, again, this is just me looking at people. Some people seem to plateau on that. And so, do you take a higher dose? What do you do? I mean, you're still overweight. Logically, you and I would say, well, you should start working out, right? But Jason, you and I know people who are not going to work out. They just won't, and it's it's one of those things where, and I don't know how old you were when you started training. I started exercising, training because I did martial arts as a kid when I was 10 years old, and I've not missed more than a couple weeks because I had the flu or something. So for 50 years, I've been training. It Me looking at the way people behave, if you start exercising when you're an adult, you tend to go off and on it. And that's just me looking. It's like, okay, well, you started late. You never really built that habit as a kid and as a teenager. So do I expect a 30-year-old overweight female or male to start working out when they never did ever before? And sadly, the answer I tell myself is no, they're not going to. So what's the trade-off? The trade-off is, okay, at least you'll lose weight, and that decreases cardiovascular disease risk, because the alternative is you'll just keep gaining weight. So it's not a perfect solution. I always say there are no perfect solutions. There are only trade-offs. So to me, it's a fair trade-off. It's like just lose the weight because that at least takes care of some other issues related to health.
Yeah, I could not agree more. And it is one of those things. That's one I try to tell people too. Don't overthink it. If you've never done it, to your point, I'm like you. I hate to be cynical, but I'm like, if you've never done it, you're probably not going to. So just go for a walk. Get up and walk. There's so much, that you can do that is so low stakes, so little effort required just to move your body. I had a relative that ended up is now in a very, very bad shape after a stroke and but due to high blood pressure and hypertension. And, back whenever, pre-stroke, this person just would not exercise, would not even think about getting quality sleep, would not do any of the things that it takes. And so it's so frustrating to me. And the sad part about it is it's like if they only knew how good life could be and how much better life could feel. That's what, I mean, I'm as vain as the next guy. I do want to look good for my wife. I always want her to think I'm hot and all that. But also, I just like feeling good, man. I like to be able to, I like to have a robust VO2 max that so that, whenever I do have grandkids one day that they're like trying to keep up with grandpa. And it's a shame that there's so few people that will just take hold of that. And now the GLP-1s, and that's what I like. That's where I try to be optimistic. It's like, okay, if someone has just been, metabolically challenged their whole life, and this gets them to a state where they feel good about going to the gym or they feel good about going out on walks. That's great, but and I also, brother, I'm with you. It was kind of I don't watch the Academy Awards. I'd rather go poke, fork in a rusty fork in my eyeballs and watch that crap. But whenever you saw all the videos of all these, again, to your point, these people that thought the Victoria's Secret models had to be big and fat and all this, and they're just as pretty as, all the other models were back in the day. And then they show up to the Academy Awards, and suddenly, all of a sudden, being really thin is pretty. It really thin is what you should. It's like it's almost like they were just trying to reward people who were just lazy and not going to do the work. And it's really hard in this world, especially with today's celebrity and it to not be completely cynical about some of this stuff.
Well, they're basically lying to themselves. That's
Yeah.
what they're trying to convince themselves that, the overweight condition is a good thing, you should celebrate it and things like that, when in fact, they probably were quite unhappy. That's why they went on these drugs. So, um, yeah, it's interesting that you and I know how good we feel when we exercise, when we train. There are people who have no idea what that feels like. That's what's really strange. And I remember my daughter, I remember when they were little, one of the things we made them do is exercise. We actually said, "You're working out," and so now they actually exercise regularly. So the habits were ingrained. But I remember one of my daughters. My God, she was grumpy and she did not want to work out. And then one day, I think my wife told me this. It clicked in high school. She said, "Wow, I feel better when I work out." And so, he said, "I told you eventually it would click." It might have taken 6 years.
Yeah.
Eventually, she made the connection like, "Wow, I feel better." And so, there are people who have no idea what that feels like, and it's like and in fact, when you think about it, if 70% of the population is either overweight or obese, they have no idea what that feels like, which is to me, that's a shame. I mean, that's really sad.
Yeah, and it's like to me the health issue. It's like, okay, I'm glad that you think you look good, whatever. You can keep telling yourself all that. I don't care. All I care about is what my wife looks like. And I think she's beautiful. You do you, but don't try to lie to me and tell me that your blood work's beautiful. Don't try to tell me that your A1C is beautiful whenever you're bumping up against type 2 diabetes. There's more to this than just the vanity aspect of you wanting people to say you look good so that whether and you're just slowly killing yourself. And to your point earlier, yeah, I've never seen a fat 90-year-old ever, and I don't think we ever will. Hey there, folks. Today's sponsor is Authentic Health. You can find them at shopauthentic.health.com. These are the creators of the foundational stack, which includes your essential nutrients, essential fats, and essential amino acids. This stack was developed for patients by physicians Gus Vickery and Dr. Troy Jackson. They had seen so many patients, and after thousands of blood panels, they noticed there was a strong universal correlation in deficiencies. And so what they created was the Authentic Health stack of essential fats, essential nutrients, and essential amino acids. And you can get 10% off just by going to shopauthentic.health.com. Use promo code Jason for your 10% discount. This is the stack that I take every single day. No compromise. I brush my teeth, I take a shower, I brush my hair, and I take my foundational stack from Authentic Health. Full disclaimer, I am an investor in the company, but that's because I believe in it so much. That's why I have put my money where my mouth is, and then I put the supplements where my mouth is. That sounded weird, but you get it. Check it out, shopauthentic.health.com. Now, back to the show.
Well,
Good.
you know what's funny? I've never seen a muscular 90-year-old, meaning like heavily muscle.
Right,
They're all
right.
quite small and lean and sinewy. So,
Yep.
yeah, you
Well,
have
let's say
bodybuilders who are over 80.
that brings us to another point. Going back to the supplementation argument, because I had this conversation with a lady who I like a lot. She's a cancer survivor, and so therefore she's really gone hard to the hoop on nutrition, eating clean, and she's a badass. I love her to death. But one of the things that she did say was that she went to a functional practitioner. I don't think it was an MD, uh, but they wanted to put her on a lot of supplements, and she's got this attitude of, I just don't think I need all these supplements. I'm not gonna do all that. I don't wanna do any
Mhm.
I don't wanna be on a lot of drugs, and I don't wanna take a lot of supplements. It's just and kind of the old, "It's just expensive urine" argument.
Right.
You are a scientist, a researcher, you looked at this stuff for years and years. What do you tell that person that says, "Yeah, no, I'm not gonna take supplements because I think they're just gonna cause me I'm just gonna piss it out. It's not gonna have any impact on me." What do you say to those folks, doc?
Well, I mean, those are a lot of people
Mhm.
that would say that. Um, but already it's a red flag, meaning even if they decided to follow your advice, they probably wouldn't comply long term.
Right.
So to me, if they can comply, in a way, the conversation stops there because, okay, I recommend creatine and protein and a multivitamin. That's pretty easy. If you can't do what's pretty easy, you're not going to do all the other stuff. So with them, I say, this is what I recommend. You can choose to do it or not do it. But deep down, you know if people are compliant or they'll adhere to your advice. And there are others who are like, I'll do exactly what you tell me because they truly want to change, what they do to improve their health or performance. So, but yeah, it's like how much time do you want to spend trying to convince someone that something is good for them when they are convincing themselves they don't need it.
That's why I'm probably the worst supplement salesperson in the world, even though I have this company that I own now. I'm like, whenever I do get in the conversation, people that generally want to understand why we did this and why we did that and why the essential nutrients are important and going to your point, the essential fats. Yeah, then I'm happy to talk about it all day long. But I'm not good at arguing. I'm not gonna convince you. It's like back in the day when I owned real estate companies, it's people would say, "Well, I could just sell my house myself." I'm like, "Yeah, you sure could. And you could also do your own taxes, and you can also defend yourself in a court of law."
Yeah.
You do you. I'm not telling you you have to use one of my realtors to sell your home.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's, probably a good idea. Let the professionals do what they do every day.
Yep.
Same thing with supplements. Like, yeah, you don't have to. You're not gonna die if you don't.
Yeah.
But if you've got certain goals, to your point, performance and things you want to do towards longevity and health span, well, you might be able to hedge if you do these things, and that's all I'm interested in.
Yeah. No, I agree with you completely. Yeah.
So, what are some of the things that are some of the research that you've seen recently that maybe this audience doesn't know about that's kind of getting you excited? Like, what are you spending most of your time looking into right now, whether it's different supplements and molecules that you're
Mhm.
trying that you're kind of excited about where it's going? What are some things that we haven't heard that don't make all the headlines right now?
What myself and my research team, we've done several of these studies. Let me sort of summarize them quick. One, we've done a lot of studies comparing energy drinks to these equivalent amount of caffeine. So let's say there's an energy drink that has 200 milligrams of caffeine and it has all these other ingredients. We'll compare it to just 200 milligrams of caffeine. And after doing about, I'd say a dozen of these, we found that caffeine is 99% of the effects of energy drinks.
Oh
So
wow, that's good. That's good stuff. I'm glad I have the question.
yes. So when I tell people buy an energy drink based on flavor, meaning you're going to drink it, it's going to help you. But again, it's mostly the caffeine. We've also done a bit on a ketone called beta hydroxybutyrate,
Oh sure.
BHB.
Hmm?
Actually, just finished. We've done two randomized controlled trials, and it's an interesting molecule because there's a D isomer and an L isomer. So LBHV, DBHV. You don't have to do the chemistry, just know they're slightly structurally different. And there seems to be some effect on the central nervous system, meaning the last study we did, it showed that it positively impacted mood. It might have an effect on, we measured grip strength, and it seemed to have an effect on grip strength, meaning helping motor unit recruitment. So there's something going on there. I mean, there's not many studies on it, specifically when it comes to performance and healthy people. So beta hydroxybutyrate, you're probably going to see a lot more of that come out because I never did any ketone supplement studies until BHB. So So those are the two main things we've been working on. Um, I'm actually doing an essential amino acid study in the fall as well as a creatine study, but it's going to be a little different. I want you to sort of pay attention. We're looking at something quite different. We're collaborating with a optometrist at the university, and he has a device that can measure how your eyes track an object. So, who's that important for? Baseball players. They got this is a ball coming at 100 miles an hour. Fighters, there's a punch coming. You got to be able to track objects in space. So, the first question I asked is, wait a minute. If you look at the muscles of the eye, I don't know how much anatomy you've had, but those are skeletal muscles. You have superior, the lateral rectus, medial rectus, superior, inferior, and then you have the obliques. It moves your eyeball in multiple directions. If you take creatine, it goes into muscle, but those are muscles. Does it affect eye tracking? Because eye tracking not just is muscle, but it's also central nervous system. Okay, now you're dealing with two things. You're dealing with the brain, you're dealing with eye muscles. Would a lower dose of creatine help you track an object? Because again, muscle. And would a higher dose, meaning to get enough into the brain, let's say 10 to 20 grams, would that help it even more? And to me, this is so interesting because no one's bothered to look at the eye muscles. That if it does, that has implications for every sport in which you track an object. So, what would other sports? Volleyball, you got to track that ball coming at you.
Sure.
Any sport where there's a ball that's moving or an object moving fast, my God, that would be another reason to take creatine. Now, obviously, we got to wait for the data because it's hard. I mean, not many labs have an eye tracking device that eye doctors use. So we're doing that this fall. You'll have to get me on the show maybe next year so I could talk about it because that actually is the one project I'm like, wow, this could be super cool if we find something in terms of eye tracking because nobody, and believe me, I'm not some eyeball expert, but nobody in exercise science is looking at the eyes, the eye muscles. So I'm like, this is really cool. So that one I'm excited about.
That's huge, and I would think that, especially right now, with all the pickleball players that there are out there, and older people are playing pickleball to a great degree,
Mhm.
I would think that there would be a lot of, kinda test subjects there to kinda gauge improvement because they're at a certain age where there's probably those muscles slowed down, and then they start playing pickleball, and then you start dosing them with creatine to see. Yeah, that's freaking cool.
Well, the first study we're doing is we're comparing college controls, so just regular healthy young people, to fighters.
Ah,
And we want to see if fighters track objects better than just healthy college students. Because you would think, well, they must be able to track objects better because they're always looking at feet and hands and heads and things like that. Or interestingly, maybe they don't. Who the hell knows? I mean, maybe tracking a punch or a kick is different than artificially tracking an object that's part of a device.
right.
So there's that specificity. It's sort of like, at the NFL combine, we do the 40-yard dash and look how fast he is. Oh, but when they get on the field, they don't know what the hell they're doing. It's put out of mistakes. But still, no one's done it yet. So I'm guessing fighters, baseball players are better than people who don't play those sports. And then once we see that there's a differentiation there, what if we now put the fighters or just regular college kids on creatine to see if there's an improvement in eye tracking? To me, I mean, that would be super cool.
Oh, that's real. I think that's awesome. Well, and two, I guess heretofore, it's always just been like, well, the reason why you're a good tennis player or baseball player, whatever, he's got good hand-eye coordination. It was just kind of a genetic thing. But if you could figure out a way that there is a correlation and you could improve someone's either that is already pro
Mhm.
or maybe a hitter that's in A ball, taking them to that next level. Oh, that's awesome. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, imagine that. Yeah, you're in the minors and you just take creatine, not because you want to gain weight, but it's like, oh my god, I can track this object, tiny white object moving at 95 miles an hour, 0.01 seconds better.
Yeah.
That's huge. That's huge.
So, all right. So what about as far as just anything that you're looking at that you're excited about with regard to certain molecules, anything for longevity. And I'm not talking about just keeping us alive longer, but you seeing that like because people, I mean, let's face it, people are living better longer. It's like, I saw like and I told you I'm 51. At my age, whenever my grandparents were my age, they were old. They were the old people. Now, I mean, and I know I'm old. I don't
But
feel
you're a
like a
healthy old.
grandpa. Yeah, I don't feel like a grandpa. There's definitely been a shift. What are
No,
some
you're right.
that is there anything you're looking at that you guys are doing some research with regard to tapping into the whole longevity space and things that are working that you're looking at?
No, we currently, not my research team, we're currently not doing anything related to that because I think when push comes down to shove, you and I know the best thing for longevity is movement, is
Yeah,
exercise, is
yeah.
training. And to me, it's really a question of, well, is there a best way to train for longevity? And I know people will talk about, hey, max VO2 is the best predictor of longevity. So you need to train for increasing max VO2. And yet the athletes that live the longest are not the ones with the highest max VO2.
Oh, you made me think about that earlier whenever we were talking about like the big guys, not living on big muscular guys. Man, you look at these ultra endurance athletes that do these long, just body crushing races, or even like I think it was what the guys that ride in the Tour de France and stuff, these cyclists that just have these hearts that beat like freaking, watermelons. They don't generally live to be terribly, terribly old because I think it's just their endothelial health is suffers and everything else. That's one of the things I started ratcheting back was I want to obviously maintain certain body fat percentage. I do watch my VO2 max, but it doesn't have to be crazy. I used to try to, go for all the volume I could. So I was crushing my Peloton, zone 5 rides, 6 days a week. And it's like, now it's like, no, chill out, because and lower your stress levels, those sorts of things. Cause I think that's where people miss the point. It's just not a all in, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, I think, well, I think some of the data suggests that, and again, these are just cross-sectional studies. You can't do a randomized controlled trial and follow people from the time they're a kid to the time they die. I mean, no, you can't do that in any kind of randomized fashion. So it's all cross-sectional. But people who play racket sports, particularly tennis, they seem to live long. And there is a cardiovascular aspect to tennis. I mean, it's start, stop, start, stop. But I think what makes tennis different, and I would even put a sport like surfing in there, is that it's cognitively challenging.
Agree.
N- You're not just like on a bike. Well, biking is more skill based. There's more skill in that than running. But running basically is you don't need skill. You know,
Yeah, my Peloton requires no skill. It just requires me to overcome boredom and just take it. You're right. There's
you're just
no
cranking.
yeah.
So if you play tennis, now you're playing against another person who is unpredictable, tracking a ball that's somewhat unpredictable, and you're moving. And I always, it's interesting that if you can teach yourself to locomote, run forward, run backward, run laterally, and I'll be honest, I have not been the best in this. In fact, I was telling my wife the other day, I said, I need to start training something laterally because everything I do is in the freaking sagittal plane.
Yeah.
I lift weights, same thing. I paddle, same plane. I do no lateral movement. I'm thinking, damn, that ain't a good thing. But what could I do laterally? I mean, I could do some weird things at the gym, but I'd rather play a game. But what is that? That would be tennis,
Yeah.
maybe pickleball. What else would be lateral? Maybe basketball.
Yeah.
But I have to think about what would I do that I would stick with, and I haven't answered that to myself yet because I'm not going to start it and then I don't want to do this anymore. I need something I'll stick with. So I need to work on that lateral stuff.
Brings up a good point though. It's one of the things that I've started paying attention to is like moves that I never do. Sprinting, which after a certain age, no one sprints, right? There's these things that our bodies are able to do, and a lot of the reasons why they become unable to do them is just because we stop doing lifting things
Yeah,
over your head. You hear these shoulder injuries and these rotator cuff surgeries that people are getting. Well, it's because when's the last time that they did anything
yeah,
over the head where it's like we just kind of forget to do these
yeah.
movements. And so
Yep.
the balance work, I'm terrible at doing balance work. I've got to start doing better at that.
Oh, just start paddling.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's exactly. We didn't talk about it, but the Dr. Antonio is a paddleboarding ninja, and
And
like I
it might
told
be the one thing I do a lot of is balance.
That's it. That's what's it's so important, and that's something I have not been doing, and so although I did tell you, Jimlyn, she's gotten into it, so when we do go somewhere outside of Texas with the beach, brother, I'm on a paddleboard now. I look terrible doing it because I'm like, I see just how bad my balance is, but I'm after it. Well, Dr. Jose Antonio, this has been awesome, man. It's always good to have you. Anything that we haven't covered that you want to tell the audience you're excited about?
Well, I want you to show up at Fort Lauderdale Beach,
I'm there.
June 17, 18, 19. It is the 23rd annual ISSN, International Society of Sports Nutrition Conference. And I'm telling you, it's not just a bunch of science nerds, it's a bunch of science nerds who are in shape. And in fact, one of my friends, it was the first time she'd ever been to ISSN to that because she'd been to like sports medicine or whatnot. And she's like, you know, it should be ISJS, not ISSN, International Society of Jack Scientists.
I love it. I
They're
love
like, everyone's in shape here. It's really strange. So, but you should go. I'll have a registration badge waiting for you. So make sure
Awesome.
you come say hi.
Well, I tell you what, and what we'll do is whenever I get there, we'll plan on like having some conversations. We'll have a special road show of the podcast. That would be a lot of fun.
Well, that'd be fun. And I can even tell you who to interview. They'll give you nice little 15 to 30-second soundbite. It'd be perfect. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, this has been a blast. Dr. Antonio, thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate you, brother.
Hey, thanks, Jason. Appreciate it.
All right.
The content provided in this podcast, The Healthy CEO, is for informational and educational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. The opinions expressed by our hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Healthy CEO. Any information provided by our hosts or guests, including any physicians who may appear on the podcast, is solely for informational purposes and does not create any doctor-patient relationship. Listeners are advised to consult with their healthcare providers before making any changes to their health routines. The Healthy CEO and its affiliates assume no responsibility or liability for any consequence resulting directly or indirectly from any action or inaction you take based on the information provided in this podcast.